So this video focuses on two different economic theories, and each theory presents a different idea about money, wealth, and the production of goods during the Industrial Revolution. A rapid increase in wealth from the Industrial Revolution factory system caused European thinkers to focus on studying and explaining how the organization of the economy affects society and wealth. During the Industrial Revolution, the world saw factory owners make incredibly high profits off of their investments. Europeans saw these high profits and began asking questions and theorizing about the wealthy industrialists and their success. Europeans also saw the development of a very poor working class, a group that lived in filthy, unsafe housing and worked with dangerous machinery for very low pay. People who were curious about these economic changes began to ask questions like, why are some people getting so rich from factories? Why are the people who are powering the economy so poor, meaning the people who are working in the factories? And what's the best way to set up an economy so that it keeps growing? With much work and effort, these questions about the economy were developed into ideas and theories about the economy. And this video is about two different theories, one that supports capitalism and laissez-faire economics, and one that supports socialism and communism. Capitalism is an economic system where production, distribution, trading, and investments are mainly controlled by businesses and individuals, not by the government. This is a definition you need to write down. Europeans rejected mercantilism, the economic theory that focused on colonization and natural resources, because of its government controls. Instead of basing their economy on a mercantilist policy, many economists instead began supporting a policy called laissez-faire, Laissez-Faire. And the laissez-faire policy formed the foundation of capitalism. Laissez-faire economic policy is a policy that lets businesses operate without government interference. Economists who believe in laissez-faire policies think that the government should stay far away from the economy. One important capitalist thinker was Adam Smith. Adam Smith was a Scottish economist who explained the basics of a laissez-faire economy in his book The Wealth of Nations in 1776. Smith explained that an economy works best when the natural forces of supply and demand operate without government interference. This means that the amount of goods produced and the price at which they're sold will stay at efficient levels if the government does not get involved. Smith explained that buyers and sellers act on self-interest and will do what is best for themselves. When companies have to compete for business, Smith said, prices will stay low in order to attract customers. Now we're going to look at the second economic theory that came about during the time of the Industrial Revolution. Not everyone in Europe agreed with the capitalist way of thinking in the early 1800s. Some people believed that ending the misery of industrial workers required eliminating capitalism completely. These people argued for socialism. In some ways, socialism was the opposite of capitalism. Where the laissez-faire policies of capitalism argued that governments should stay as far away from the economy as possible, socialists believed that the government should be very strongly involved with the economy. Socialism is defined as a belief that the means of production, capital, land, raw materials, and factories, should be owned and controlled by society. And there's two different ways that socialists believe this can be done, either directly, meaning everyone collectively owns everything, or indirectly, meaning that the government controls the means of production on behalf of the entire group of people living in a society. Socialism developed in response to the huge economic inequality, meaning the very, very rich population and the very, very poor population that developed as a result of the Industrial Revolution. Socialists saw this economic inequality as a problem that needed to be fixed. Socialists wanted to solve the problem of economic inequality by redistributing wealth. This would mean taking the money from the rich and redistributing it, basically giving it out in different sections to the poor until everyone had the same amount of money. And the reason that socialists did this was because they wanted everyone to share equally in the benefits of the industrial age. The economy was booming, and they thought everyone should benefit from that, not just the factory owners. Socialists tried to replace the competition that you see in capitalism, businesses working against each other to attract customers, with cooperation, meaning socialists wanted people to work together, basically instead of working against each other. One very important socialist thinker was Karl Marx. Karl Marx was a German philosopher who wanted to find its scientific basis for socialism. In 1848, Karl Marx, working with Friedrich Engels, who was the son of an English factory owner, published the Communist Manifesto. In the Communist Manifesto, Karl Marx explained how socialism could solve economic inequality in society. So in the Communist Manifesto, Karl Marx explained how he felt that socialism could end economic inequality throughout the world. And he did this by looking at the history of economics and societal development. So first what he did, he looked back in history and he found out who were the haves, or the rich people, and who were the have-nots, the poor people. And he named these groups the bourgeoisie, they were the rich, and the proletariat, they were the poor, or the working class. What Marx found in history is that usually the bourgeoisie were rich because they controlled the production of goods, and the proletariat were poor because they did not produce the goods that ran the economy and made a profit. But what Karl Marx found when he looked at the factories of the Industrial Revolution was that even though the proletariat, the working class, were the ones who were actually in the factory making the goods, they were not getting most of those economic profits. Most of the profits from factories went to the factory owners, even though the factory owners didn't do the work. In the Communist Manifesto, Karl Marx predicted that there would be some sort of violent revolution based on economics. He thought that the proletariat would rise up in a revolution against the bourgeoisie. Marx called this conflict between the rich and the poor, the haves and the have-nots, a class struggle. And because there's usually more have-nots than there are haves, meaning there's usually more poor people than there are rich people, Karl Marx predicted that the poor people would win this revolution against the rich people. So to sum up Karl Marx's views, he thought that the proletariat, the poor people, the working class, would defeat the bourgeoisie in a class struggle. Once again, the bourgeoisie are the rich people. And once the rich people were defeated, that the proletariat will build a society where the people owned everything together. And in that society, there would be no private property, there's no social classes, and Karl Marx said there would be no government. Now, this final stage that Karl Marx described, the one with no private property, no social classes, no government, where everyone's equal, everyone owns everything together, he called this communism. So to sum up the main points of this video, once again we are looking at two different economic philosophies or ideas about the economy and how it should work that developed during the Industrial Revolution. The first one we looked at was called capitalism, and in capitalism they followed the laissez-faire policy, which is where they want the government to stay far away from the economy and to let the economy function without lots of taxes and regulations and rules for businesses. Also in capitalism, just about everything, all property, all the means of production, they're owned by either individuals or businesses, not the government. And the second system that we looked at was socialism. Socialism is the idea that the government should very much be involved with the economy, and the reason for that being to make sure that there is economic equality, meaning they looked at the Industrial Revolution, saw that some people were very rich, saw that some people were very poor, and decided that the government needed to get involved in order to create equality. And part of socialism that Karl Marx described in his book, The Communist Manifesto from 1848, was communism. And that was the idea that one day the working class, the poor working class, would overthrow the rich factory owner class and would create a society of complete social and economic equality